Hello, people. It's with great pleasure I'm speaking to Anne-Marie Waters tonight. So yeah, we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to listen to what Anne-Marie's got to say about what's been happening, I think, since we last saw each other, which was quite some time ago, and what your plans are for this coming year, the elections, and forced adoption really involved in all of that. So, hi.
Oh, Sharon, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Well, yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Right.
If you want to try coming back in and clicking that link again, it should repair itself. Sorry, StreamYard isn't the best. All right.
If you go out of the link, can you still not hear me?
Sorry, guys, I can't hear anything.
Sorry about this, guys. Technical difficulties. If you leave and then come back in, yeah, I have that problem, especially if somebody tries to ring me. Hopefully we can get it back.
Yes, it should come back on again. Sorry, it's just issues with StreamYards. It might be the amount of places we're streaming to, because obviously we're not just streaming on YouTube, we're streaming to quite a few different places, which I'm just trying to get up everywhere. So hopefully, just jump back in. Sorry, I'm just going through everything to get everything up as well at the same time. Do I try and give a ring, Sharon?
You can hear me okay though, can't you? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear both.
Yeah. I've not got her phone number.
Oh, hang on, it's all right. Should be all right. Let me just take myself back out. Just waiting for it to connect. Not connecting. Is it not connecting? It's not connecting for some reason. Let's see. It was working fine a minute ago, wasn't it?
I know, yeah, before the intro.
She just intro and it kind of knackered it. Oh, hang on.
I don't know. I noticed the mic was muted.
Okay.
Oh, she's back.
I can hear
Hello,
you now.
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now and see you. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me?
Oh, brilliant. Oh, fantastic. Anne-Marie, I just want you to talk about what you've been up to and talk about some of your policies and what you hope for the voting in May and the elections. And yeah, just if any questions come up, I'll throw them at you.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Sharon. Thanks for having me on. What have we been up to? God, so much. Brand new manifesto. Since I last spoke to you, we have a brand new manifesto. And a lot of, to be relevant to this evening, a lot of child protection in there, because you know I feel strongly about this as well as you. But during the year, someone got in touch with us about forced adoption. And it was something that I hadn't thought about before. So I looked into it and was just completely shocked by it. The social workers that do this, that make these decisions, are not really accountable to anyone. They are left-wing political activists, a lot of them. And we have children being taken from their parents.
Sorry, there's a bit of lag on there, Anne-Marie. We're losing you a little bit. Well, I am.
It's coming through fine on the stream. It's literally just a bit of a lag on your end, Sharon. Sorry about that.
All right, okay. I won't interrupt you again.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I hate it. I really do. So yeah, we looked into this, and it's now part of our manifesto. To first of all, look into all the cases that have happened. And we want to know of children that have been forcefully adopted. We want a review of them all. Now, as far as I'm concerned, one child taken from their parents without justification is one far too many. This is not a minor issue. It's a massive issue. And you'll find that 90% of the people who are subject to this are on lower income. So we're not talking about the well-off here. As usual, it's the poorest in the country who are subject to this. And I'm particularly concerned about this because we know, councils they've tried to take foster kids away from a couple because they voted UKIP. There was another case of them wanting to take a baby off a mother because she supported the EDL. So we know where this is going. And the hypocrisy of it all as well is they talk about significant harm. They don't define significant harm. It's left up to left-wing activists in social work to decide what this is. And yet, there's no kids taken off their parents if they're at risk of FGM. There's no kids taken off their parents if they're at risk of child marriage. It's always the British, the poor British majority that suffer from this. And I was genuinely shocked to hear about this and to learn about it. So that's gone into our policies as well. But something else that has come up is the sexualization of children. And that's going in we're updating the manifesto as I speak, really. And that's going in as well. And I don't know if you saw, there was an interview I did with an activist group in Wales, and they're campaigning against the sexualization of children. And it's an agenda, the Agenda 21, that sort of dominates everything. And it's not a conspiracy. It's on the UN's own website. They also want to sexualize children. And so you've got this 100 genders rubbish being taught to kids in schools. They're being taught about fetishes, Sharon, fetishes. This is not, I don't care if people have fetishes, but keep it in your bedroom at home. It is not for schools. But they're trying to turn kids into adults. And they're putting all this pressure onto kids. I think they're trying to separate kids from parents as well, and trying to remove parents' ability to raise their own kids. So instead, they'll be taught by teachers in schools and made to be adults when they're young children. And the country doesn't know about this. The wider country isn't aware of this stuff. So I'm glad we're talking about it now. But I'm glad that I had the chance to put this into the manifesto. And that's what we've done. And again, we're the only party that's going to do it, because everyone else just seems to be fully on board with all this UN rubbish that wants to completely change everything about us, including kids. So we've been updating the manifesto a lot, and a lot of it is relevant to what we're talking about tonight. A focus for me now and for the party is going to be on May's elections. And I think they're the most important elections for a long time. We haven't had an election since the coronavirus catastrophe started. I think a lot of people are tired of the way this has been handled. So for myself, I'm going to be standing in Hartlepool. I'm standing for Hartlepool Borough Council in a seat in an area called De Bruce, where we have a sitting councillor, Karen King. She won a seat here at the last Borough Council elections. And it's going really well. There's a lot of support for us here. There's a lot of support, even among sort of business people and media people here. I think we'll get on side, and I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic, and of course, my longer term plan is to stand for Parliament in Hartlepool, and to get someone into Parliament that is willing to talk about this, and to stand up for women, to stand up for children, to stand up against the politically correct, divisive, left-wing rubbish that dominates our public sector. And I think it's time. And we need a bit of time still to get ourselves known, and especially to people who are not involved in our side of politics, the wider public, to get ourselves known. But I'm very confident in our future, particularly here in Hartlepool and in the Northeast. So that's what we're up to.
Now I'm going to keep jumping back in, so I do apologise for that. Sharon's having a few issues with a connection.
Yeah. Oh, God, I hate it. I do.
It happens, and unfortunately, it happens at the worst of times. So I do apologise for that.
I know. Whatever happened to sitting down and actually having a face-to-face conversation? It's always really awkward, isn't it? If it's not connection problems, there's like you're not quite sure if anyone can hear you, and yeah, nightmare.
Yeah, I do prefer. Oh, sorry, go on.
Can I ask you about you've got Children Matter?
Yes.
Can I ask you about that?
Yeah, basically it started off as a way to stop me from getting a gagging order when my kids got taken.
Right.
So what I did was I made a page, I put their pictures up on it, I put their names up on it, their dates of birth, what they look like, what was going on in the case and everything. I put a couple of trusted people on there as admin, and then I removed myself.
Right.
They tried through court because obviously they were going through the process of they wanted my kids. They made it clear they wanted my kids. And they actually told me that I had to remove them. I'd like remove all the posts, and if I didn't remove the posts, it'd stop me from seeing my kids. I sat there in court and I said, look, I can't remove them. I was admin when they got put up. Now I'm not. I can't do anything to get them back up. So unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. It belongs to the public now, and they couldn't put a gagging order on me because of it, because it was still in the public domain. The majority of people who've got gagging orders, it's because they've done what they've been told, and they've took the pictures down, they've took the information down. They've been bullied and blackmailed and coerced into thinking that they'll suffer serious repercussions if they don't remove it. So they do, because they don't want to lose contact with the kids. I just knew what they were doing. I knew the road they were going down. I knew that I was fighting a losing battle, so I wasn't going to give up my right to speak as well. So
can I ask? I mean, I don't want to be. I mean, I know this isn't my stream. Sorry, Sharon.
I
don't want to be nosy or anything, but I mean, are you willing to? Because I need to hear from people who experience this stuff. Are you willing to?
This is why I do it. People can't help us if they don't understand.
Can I just sorry, Katie-Jayne, before you get into your flow and tell your story, I'm really just on what you said there about you want to hear from people.
Yeah.
There are lots of people out there that will inundate you with their stories if you want to hear them.
Yes, please, I do.
Right. Well, we'll put that out there to contact you. Maybe put an email address on the link or something, so that these people because with Katie's story as well, they build a case against the older child, usually put them with a family member, and then in order to get access to the younger child, because it's lazy social working, they've got the paperwork, go straight through the courts. And this is why a lot of women that are pregnant or due to have a baby, when they've asked for help, they haven't got any until they've got pregnant, and then all of a sudden they're getting social workers at the door. And if they can't find something that sticks, they use potential risk of future harm because of childhood abuse or time in care or whatever else. But that was just to kind of an overview of what this type of thing you're going to hear about. And Katie's is just the one out of many, really. So
okay, all right, no, lovely. Thanks for that, Sharon. I mean, I can't campaign about something if I don't know what people are really going through. So yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
This is why we do the channel. This is what we fight for. This is why I said before we started the channel that I've been really excited to actually get to speak to you, because you're the first person in a political position that's actually listened to us with forced adoption. First person to recognise it, that I've witnessed that was a high up figure was Tommy. And then obviously because I was the one who was putting the questions out there in Wake Up UK and in YouTube channels, trying to get the question of forced adoption across. And I think it was actually my comment on one of your streams where you went, forced adoption, I'll have a look into that.
Oh, was it? Sure it was. Thanks.
People aren't going to know how to help us or what to do unless we talk about it, unless they know how we go through. And like Sharon was saying, they built up a case with my son. That case fell apart because I had a witness that proved that it was a nursery worker that restrained him where the grab marks on his arms came from. And got him back, and they started working with me, getting me to do all these different courses, all these different sorts of things and everything. Found out I was pregnant, kept going through it and everything. And the week before my daughter was born, they took my son and they gave my son to my abuser. The week to the day before she was born. Like, they planned it out methodically. They got my daughter because they took my son. They've got nothing on me against my daughter, and all they've got against my son is the brainwashing that his dad put him through when social helped him keep my son away from me for weeks. before even letting me talk to him. And all of a sudden he had this scripted sentence that he'd come out with. Last time I saw him, if you asked him a question, he'd answer you one word. He won't give you a sentence.
Right.
The only time he'd give you a sentence is if he was talking. If you asked him anything, one word, that's it. All of a sudden he's coming out with a sentence. He's calling me something he's never called me before. He's coming out with words he's never heard of before, and he's giddy about it. And he was talking about, apparently I'd slapped him. His line that he had was, "Hi, when I'm naughty, my mummy smacks me." And that was his line. Giddy as anything.
That's it.
That's it.
I've heard so many other stories the same, Anne-Marie, about the 1 minute they're saying that the child's neglected and they can't talk, and then 2 months later this child's coming out with a whole sentence of abuse about the parent that they've been ripped away from. And they quite often as well, they'll contact ex-partners who are out of the picture for good reason, and they'll go behind the mother's back. It used to be that you had to give them consent, because if there was a risk to mother or child, they wouldn't get in touch with them. But now they seem to ignore them because it serves their purpose. And I'll tell you something else, and this has come from somebody that was at the meeting. She worked for children, Bernardo's, and they have the social work meetings because obviously they have the kids in care, and they were planning for future how they would to break the cycle of children who grew up in the care system having children that end up in the care system. In order to break that cycle, as soon as any of these kids that go through these care homes or through the care system have children, they will remove that child at birth in order to prevent that cycle, to break that cycle, instead of investing in those young people knowing that that's the usual outcome because they've not been given any skills. If being in care is such a bad place that you don't fit the parent role, then they need to look at why aren't these children leaving care with these skills that they should be giving them in that system, instead of taking future children off them. And it is an actual plan that they've got, and they're using it to break the cycle. But what's actually doing is
creating a cycle.
They're just fodder for the selling of children, because they float them on the stock market. And if you look at what these children are worth on the stock market, and all the they take them across to Ireland because they take them from birth, and because they haven't got a birth certificate, they usually take them to Ireland, get them into South Ireland, fabricate a birth certificate for them, and then they can ship them abroad, you see. Because especially blonde-haired, blue eyes, they're quite sought after. You get a high price for them. So you can find all of this information around. But it's like a production line. The more kids they can get in care, the more kids they've got, surrogate mothers they've got in the future.
I was kidding.
Is a child automatically taken off you if you grew up in care?
Yeah, they had
difficulty in a lot of cases.
Yeah, they had difficulty with me because I was in care in Germany, not in the UK. So I was the not so easy target. So they still, had a way around getting to me, getting through everything, even though I don't have a criminal record, even though, I've worked since I was 14, don't have any, major issues, anything that could stop me from parenting, and didn't stop me from parenting. But they still use the fact that I was in care. They even use the fact that I was an abuse survivor to give my child to my abuser. Because I couldn't protect myself before they were born, so I wouldn't have been able to protect them when they were born. But I had my son up until he was 3 when they took him.
I mean, this as well, there's so many angles to it, because it's like they pushed all these mental health issues onto kids. They find a reason to medicate them through school for ADHD or whatever it is, right? You're on that list of mental health, right? Medication. If you've been on antidepressants, a lot of kids are depressed, especially now, more and more so. And so if you've got a history of mental health, they'll take your child on the basis of potentially you're a future risk of harm to your child, because you could go back down and have depression and abuse your child because of that, or
they use my PTSD against
your child because you get depressed, or get into poor relationships because you've got low self-esteem.
Like, they don't go
But there's
after you
nobody looking at.
in one way. They'll go after you in as many ways as they can. Like, they went after my mental health. My late fiance was killed in front of me the day I turned 20 weeks pregnant with my son. So I've had PTSD since then. Obviously, it's not medicated or anything like that. I was under mental health for a while, and they actually had to forcibly discharge me because I refused to just not go anymore. If I wanted someone to talk to about it, even though I didn't need it. They used my depression, my anxiety, but all they did was escalate everything so they could get what they wanted.
And what is it they want?
Kids, it's profit.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but actually, it's been going on for years. If you look at, one example I can think of is the Catholic Church in Ireland.
1934, it's been going on.
Take kids off mothers because they were unwholesome or whatever, and literally sell them.
Yeah.
So, and that's not that long ago. So if anyone thinks this couldn't possibly happen, it can.
It's been going on since 1934.
And all of
your name, is it Katie, is it?
Yeah.
Hi, Katie. So where are your kids now?
My son is with his father, who was my abuser. He was the one who kidnapped me from care, smuggled me back into the UK, used to offer me up to his mates and strangers when he was off his face. In Northumberland, I believe they're in Northumberland anyway, but they could be anywhere. His parents have got a place in Jersey, so they could even be there. With my daughter, I haven't got a clue. She could be anywhere in the world. And the worst part is, if worst case scenario she died, I wouldn't be entitled to be informed about it. I wouldn't even be.
Has she been adopted by somebody?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Jesus.
People who adopted her are now in their late 50s, and apparently they're more suitable to look after her than a fit, healthy 20-year-old or 25-year-old now. And she'll be she'll be 4 next month.
Okay.
It's sad to say, and I know there's a lot of good foster carers out there that have got their hearts in the right places, and I'm not targeting them, but there are a lot that go out. It's easy money for them in some ways, and it's social workers show preference to certain foster carers, and they're raking it in, and you kind of think if you give the parent on low income some of that financial help, they wouldn't be in the state that they're in the first place. But you've got the funds to pay a complete stranger to take that child. That child doesn't know, especially when the parents not abused the child. That child has no idea why they can't be with their mummy anymore or their daddy anymore. And the family courts is so corrupt. I've had a retired judge tell me that because I asked him about the Middlesbrough area, see if there was any solicitors that he knew that would be on the side of the parent, because I had so many stories, and he said the trouble is they're all in the pocket of the council because they get a good pay out of it, so they don't really like to go against them. And the one case where he did go against them and sent a child home, he was getting talked about around all the courts. When he turned up at court, they were saying, "Oh, what have you been up to?" Because he went against what the social worker wanted and made out this child was in grave danger. He couldn't sleep. He says, I worried about the child with my decision. But when he checked it a few months later with the same social worker, the child was fine. It's the support that these families need. And all they do when they go in, they ask for support, because where else can you go if you want help with your children? And what they get is somebody gathering evidence against them, gathering information on them, and deciding whether they're going to step it up or drop it. But there's no actual, unless they're putting family support work into all of these houses, which doesn't really happen. And they're not trained properly anyway, a lot of them. I've worked in that field, as you know. So these parents are getting no help apart from being told they've got to jump through certain hoops or else they're going to lose their children. Well, that puts them in a state of stress. They don't know where to turn. You can't even go to the health visitor and trust that she's not going to, even if she wants to help you at these meetings, they don't use their evidence because it goes against what they want. So if you've put a positive report in about a parent because they're doing really well, it's likely that they won't invite you to the meeting, or they won't involve it in the meeting. So it all goes against the parent.
I can give you two examples from that as well. Yeah. First example was in a social services meeting. Me and my son's dad, my abuser, we should never be in the same room together. We should never be in the same building together. They used to force us in the same room together constantly. And he'd sit right next to the social worker, and he was allowed to interrupt me when it was my time to talk. He was allowed to shout at me and call me vile names there, and got away with it. So the next time I took in my mental health worker, and she was actually stood up for me. If it weren't for her, but they allowed that to happen for almost a year. They allowed that to happen. Second one was in court. I didn't ask any family members to come in as a witness for me with court. I asked my family members to do written references and statements, and I put them in. I asked for 3 witnesses to be brought in: my GP, the health visitor, and the family support worker. Every single one of them were denied to come in. The judge turned around and said she wasn't willing to listen to anyone who wasn't opposed to children coming back home.
And they tell lies as well. The social worker, I had one grandmother telling me that she'd gone for contact with her grandchildren. They ruled her out as a possibility because they said she was a flight risk, because she was from she was Pakistani origin, but she'd never been. She's Newcastle born and bred, you know what I mean? But they ruled her out. But she went for contact at the contact centre, and the social worker stated that she was a flight risk and she'd tried to take the child from the centre. Well, her friend had happened to video the contact, so she had the video of them going to the centre, and it clearly showed that she wasn't trying to remove the child at all. So the judge had said, rather than looking at the social worker's lies, she asked the grandmother why she'd recorded it, right? And didn't want to know. But this judge in Newcastle, she's also runs her own law firm, so she's raking it in left, right, and centre with all these cases, and she's really harsh as well on the family. In fact, she just completely demoralizes them. You know, it's disgusting, the things I've heard in these family courts. It's you couldn't write it, honestly. When people tell me the stories, it's there's nothing, and they're so helpless as well. That's the problem. They've got nobody on their side. They can't. You know, we were outside a court in Manchester, weren't we, the last time, Katie-Jayne? For that family, they were removing the child from the hospital, and
newborn.
They were in the court deciding on it when we were outside campaigning against it, and they still removed the child. They're taken from the hospitals, you see, and they can't do anything about it.
Jesus, it's like a horror story.
It is a horror story. It's been going on for years and years. It's got worse and worse. It's like the kids are for sale. It's Ofsted said that they had to put more kids in care, so they try to meet the quota. I know of newly qualified social workers, as soon as they've taken the first child for forced adoption, they get promoted to team managers and stuff.
My son's social worker got promoted to manager the second time she took him. The social worker that took over, that took my daughter, forcibly adopted his sister's kid.
I know a social worker, trainee social worker, that was her first case of shadowing was with a case of forced adoption. This mother had had children in the past removed. Now, there's no credit given for whether we all change and grow. Hopefully, most of us do, and you learn through that, right? It was just a case of, well, she's had the others removed, so she's not fit, so we'll take this one. So they built a case, and this is how they convinced this young girl that it was the right thing to do, because, you know, obviously she's been a shit parent in the past. Well, her next case, her next placement that she was going to, you interview for the placement, and she had to demonstrate taking a child at birth for her role play. Now, that's an agenda, if you ask me.
Wow.
It's not a theory, it's an actual conspiracy that they're taking these children at birth. And they, like I say, all these kids saying, I've got mental health problems, and going to the doctors, they'll be a target. All of these kids that they put in the care system, they'll be a target. You know, if these kids find themselves homeless, they'll be a target if they get pregnant.
Speaking of, Lisa over on Facebook commented she was in care from the age of 10 and homeless at 15, but I managed to keep my kids from care services, thankfully. Some of my family are not as lucky.
The United Survivors North East, Ailsa Waters and Elaine and Kerry Lee, there's a few of them, Jane, they formed a group in Newcastle, United Survivors United North East. I think it's North East Survivors, something like that anyway, you'll find it. But she had her first child removed, and then they tried to take a second one, but she was homeless as a teenager, and, you know, no help or support. It's just gathering evidence on you so that they can build a case. And a lot of the time as well, postcode areas, if people come from certain postcode areas, they find that a lot of the people on that estate have got the kids removed.
This house is actually a prime example for that. I am the third person to live in this house that has turned to campaigning after. The last 2 people to live in this house before me, I've met on campaigns. The woman to live here before me involved with social services. It is genuinely a postcode lottery thing on this end. It's ridiculous the way they go about it. It's a method. You have to prove that at any point in the future, you'll never do whatever it is you're accused of doing. That includes grounding, includes shouting, includes taking property, it includes grabbing them to pull them out of the way of danger. You've got to prove that you'll never do that under any circumstances at all. They just have to prove that you might, or that you can't.
That's why they get away with it. It's impossible. It's crystal ball method. Well, you've got history, so we're going to. I've known that them even going after the grandparents' history when they couldn't get enough on the parent. They used the grandparent background. They might have dealt drugs or got caught for some crime, petty crime or whatever, but they go into that when they can't get enough on the parent. They go.
My grandma spanked her youngest child, right? And bear in mind, my grandma's in her 70s now. He's nearly in his 50s. The youngest child now is nearly in his 50s, and he went to stick something in a plug socket, so she smacks him on the rear end. Because of that, they accused my grandma of being a child beater.
Jesus. I mean, it seems to me that they make up their mind that they want to take the kid, and then they find reasons to take the kid. Yep. No one is holding them to account, so no one is actually questioning the reasons they're given. And they're just getting bonuses or what? I mean, what is?
When they appeal it, you've got to go to the judge to ask the judge that gave you the judgment if you can appeal their judgment.
Anne-Marie, you remember when I came to you when I first lost my job and we were looking at what?
Yeah.
I realised afterwards they use the exact same strategy to get rid of me as they do to parents. They decide you're not fit for purpose. Yeah. They only take the evidence that suits their purpose. They get everybody on their side because they've got the authority. They've got the solicitors and the CAFCAS and everybody in their pocket. So, you don't stand a chance really. Once they've decided what they're doing, that's what they do, and they're so arrogant that it's and ex-social work managers have said that the social workers, they talk about the parents like they're low life scum. It's almost like we'll act as judge and jury over whether you're fit to be a parent. Most of them straight out of uni, because they push these girls into social work in the school, and then it's like, oh, it's 25 grand a year for 18 years old. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of handbags, isn't it? So yeah, they just do what they have to do. So
this is our website. We've got a section on the website for the missing kids, the kids that have been taken for forced adoption. And this isn't all of them. This was about 3 months worth of pictures when it loads.
So that's childrenmatter.co.uk, is it?
No, childrenmatter.news.
.news, okay.
Yeah.
And either of you, actually, do you know any whistleblowers inside the council, inside the social services, that might, even anonymously, might be willing to go public and say that this is what goes on?
I can ask a couple of the social workers near here, because there are a couple that, when I've been protesting up here, they've stopped and they've had a chat and said, what they feel about the situation. So I can definitely ask her. Other than that, it's Carol Woods is the only social worker I know who's actively spoken out about it.
Carol Woods?
Yeah.
She had her whole life destroyed over it.
And she's a social worker who went public and said that this is going on?
Yeah. Wow. Lancashire, that's the town right next door to where I am.
Okay.
I'm literally on the edge of Lancashire. And she was from Lancashire Social Services.
And have you ever spoken to a lawyer or a journalist? I wonder would there be any
journalists won't take it.
Brave journalists who'd be willing to do this.
Media
is a completely taboo subject.
We actually got banned 2 days ago on YouTube for showing a video about social services, and there were videos that the BBC have done in the past, and all we done was re-air them, and we literally got a 2-week ban on YouTube 2 days ago just for showing that video. Like they do not want people understanding. I mean, I'm slowly scrolling through this, but like the amount of kids that get taken, and this is only 3 months worth of kids. Like Faces of Forced Adoption, they do banners for everyone, for the kids and that, because obviously a lot of parents get gagged, and a lot of these parents have been gagged. So Faces of Forced Adoption do what they can to get the faces out there as best as they can. They've done them for my kids and everything.
And a lot of these kids that's in the older kids in the care homes, a lot of them are private care homes. They got rid of the kind of council care homes, and a lot of them are just 2-bedroom houses with 1 or 2 carers around, and they get trafficked out. They get these are the kids that's getting groomed, because they're easy targets. There was a foster carer
blonde haired and blue eyed as well. If you look through, as you're going through them, if you look, most of them are blonde haired and blue eyed, and that's the terrifying thing,
isn't it?
Well, this is a terrifying thing. This is why I hate going through this, because you see how many kids are blonde haired and blue eyed. Obviously, not all of them are, but
yeah,
that's my son.
Oh wow.
And
Jerry Hannah. Jerry Hannah's a good person to speak to, Anne-Marie, because he works with he's actually a charity, Parenting Together. It's PARTOG, shortened to PARTOG, and his charity is funded to help parents with learning disabilities who are dealing with having the children removed and things like that. So,
what's his name again, Sharon?
Jerry Hannah.
Hannah.
Yeah, it's G. Yeah, it's G, not a J. So
Jerry Hannah. And where's he? What part? He's in what part of the country?
He's in Scotland.
Scotland. I'm trying to think of ways that we can. I mean, would one of you, Katie, would you be willing to come on to a stream with me on a Thursday and tell your story? Actually, would both of you be willing to come on with a stream with me? I mean, I know we're doing that now, but we might get a different audience on my stream. I'm also thinking, as social media, I assume YouTube banned you, so I assume the rest of social media are pretty much the same, Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it.
Oh, we've luckily got a couple of different accounts. Like we're actually live on 3 different YouTubes. We're on Wake Up UK, the Patriotic Emergency channel, and our backup channel, which we've just started doing again today. We're on 2 or 3 different Facebooks. My personal one, the Children Matter one, and Wake Up UK's one. D Live, VK twice on Wake Up UK and on ours, and we're on Twitter as well. So we are still live on them. They got us on that social services one.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to put leaflets up all over somewhere. Children are being stolen by social services. I
would happily hand them out. I'd be everywhere.
Pay for them. Stick them all over. Pick a town and just stick them all over it. I might even get other people across the country to do the same thing. And if people see that, they will be interested in what that has to say. If you put the right words on it, people will be interested in what you have to say.
I mean, around here, like every time I've done a demo around here, because here's a high area for getting kids removed, and we've got a contact centre a 10-minute walk from my house, and it's only 10 minutes because it's uphill. But every time I've done a demo around here, especially the older generation, they always come over, they always have a chat with us, and the amount of times that we've been pulled aside going, I can't believe it's still going on, I can't believe it's still happening. I've got a friend, she's called Tara, she's in her 90s. She came over from Ireland because of how bad it got in Ireland. And, she saw what I was like. She knew she knew me from being a very small kid because she was friends with my gran. She knew both my kids, when we came back from Germany, when I had my daughter and everything. And she saw everything that was going on. If anyone had any issues with me, everyone saw my kids. There'd have been thousands of reports if there was anything going on, but they didn't care.
Yeah.
What do you want to happen, both of you? Sharon, what do you think what do you want to happen? What should we do? When we finish this call now, what should we do? Because I'm genuinely, this is heartbreaking. It's something I want to do whatever I can do to help you. So what do you want me to do? As soon as I get off here, what will I do? I'm going to give this Carol Woods a shout. If you have any contact details for her, what do you want me to do? Seriously.
I'm sure Jimmy the Hat has some contact details, so I can message Jimmy afterwards and see if he's got some contact details for her.
Okay. So
The thing is, the whole of children's services needs an overhaul, right? It's ruled by common purpose. They restructure the services and rename them. And for instance, in Sunderland, right, they have Together for Children, right? Now they got such a bad Ofsted report that they apparently Together for Children is a private company. It's not part of the council, so they pay children Together for Children as their children's services. But when you tackle the council, they say, oh, well, they're not actually part of the council. I don't know whether that's just a loophole or what, but when you look on the likes of the company house and you look at the background of that and how it's changed names and how many people have the turnover of staff in such a short period of time, and they're still getting an absolutely terrible Ofsted. So nothing's improved. That's just one example. So the whole thing needs an overhaul. We need to go back to, more family support work rather than social work. The family support work, these people need to be trained. They need to start it in the schools instead of sending them off to do health and social care courses, which lead to either nursing or social work. They need to do courses for them on, human development, child psychology, things like that, because set them up to be parents themselves, so they've got a little bit of understanding before they find themselves pregnant. But also training the family support work staff to go in and offer this training. They put loads of money into these parenting groups, right? Well, you don't get the people that you need at parenting groups. You need people to go out to people's homes. That was the most beneficial to the parents, is you're working in their environment, and it takes a few sessions. You get 6 sessions in a lot of cases. If you've got the right training to give the right advice to these parents and you have a good enough understanding of children's development and psychology, you can advise that parent and give them a chance to improve themselves or have knowledge. If they've come from poor parenting background, they've missed out on a lot of skills and training in order for them to become parents, which is why they know that this is why they failed, but they're not offering that to fill that void. When they said you can't smack your children, I was going, well, where's the training for these parents that were brought up being smacked? Because they've not learned any other way. So what are they supposed to? I was one of those parents. I educated myself on those sort of things because I wanted to be a better parent. Not everybody's motivated to read as many books as I did, but in that case, that's why I wanted to do that job, because I could go out and I could deliver what I'd learned. And I was also living it with my own children. Those are the things that parents value when they ask for support and help. Not being told, well, you've got to do this and this. I want to check.
We completely removed with social services, like moving forward. Like at the minute, their target, their quota, that's their incentive to take the kids. You want to get promoted, you want a bonus. You want to go up in the world, you want to get praised, well, whatever, then you need to take this many kids. These many kids needs to be in care. This many kids needs to be up for adoption. And that needs to be gone. That needs to absolutely be obliterated. It should be a case of the amount of kids that you take into care, repercussions, should be there, because if kids can't stay with the parents, there's other blood relatives that more than likely are there to step in and just turn around and go, actually, we'll do it. While they sort themselves out, while they learn to be a parent, we'll take over. We'll be the parent. We'll be the guardian, role model, whatever. Instead of separating kids and then putting them in dangerous situations where proper background checks are never done.
Most of the services, most of the children's services in this country, at some point in time, have invested in family group conference, the program that was designed to keep children in the family. And you have the conference and you give the power back to the family. They use it for a little bit. Then once they've got accredited, they water it down. And then the family rights group are supposed to monitor it and make sure that they do the accreditation and everything. I did the accreditation for the year and then I lost my job. But I had a lot of success with doing family group conferencing. And I keep saying to people, if they want me to get in touch with the family and bring them together, I'm happy to do that properly, but this is where all of these services up and down the country, this is where the agenda isn't to keep the family together, because if you bring when you've got somebody going out and speaking individually to all the family members and asking them, you know, you get the list from the child's parents. It can be friends, neighbours, whoever they just deem their family. So if you had more of that sort of structure going on, where you bring the family members together, and if there's violent or you know, aggressive family members that can't mix, you do like a separate group, like a mediation sort of session. There's ways around it that you involve everybody. Doesn't mean that they're going to get a say in it, but you're involving them in a better way than what the social service, because all they do is they pit one against the other. They use an ex that's known as you know, is a known narcissist, really, his behaviour. They should know that that's what his behaviour is showing you. But yet they listen to them against the parent, and they end up taking the children, which means the children then don't get to see that other parent that's now absent. So
okay,
sorry, that family. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be. It needs pulling down, and I think we need to go back to, I think, social services. Really, it only became social services in 1970. Before that, it was, I don't know what it was called, but it started because at the turn of the century, at the end of the last, there was volunteer women helping other women that weren't coping, that lost their husbands in the war or whatever. So it was a community helping each other out. Those in a better position or with time to spare could go and help the neighbours and parents with the children or whatever else. That's what we need to get back to, really, is being able to offer that as a nurture group, a community group, without social services involved. So, yeah, but they're keeping everyone away from each other at the moment. So everyone's in fear of everybody.
I honestly think, Sharon, that, I mean, people are saying, and they're absolutely right, we need to look into the whole social care system, and we do. You're right, the whole thing needs an overhaul. I think the only way you're going to get that is to change the politicians, but in the meantime, is to embarrass them, to get, you know, to expose this to the country, because the country doesn't know about this.
Family courts as well, right? They're the only court in the land that you can lose your like they'll use accusations against you without a conviction. There's things that they take, like they'll say you've assaulted your child. Well, if I've committed assault, I should be going to a criminal court to get convicted. And if I'm convicted, fine, you've got a case against me to take my child. But they're being judge and jury in the family courts. The family courts is really needs looking at, because Kafka's, they're all, you know, it depends whose side they're on and you know, who they play golf with on a weekend and things like that. It's
absolutely.
You know, that all needs it needs to be made public. Like, they need to open it up to the public, the family courts, so that people are getting a fair hearing, because the social worker can sit there and lie, the solicitor can sit there and do nothing to defend the family, and then that parent comes out of court, they've lost a child, and there's nobody in there on their side, and this is where they're taking their own lives, and they can't live with, and also the fear of having another child. They're potentially going to get a knock at the door saying, we're taking this one too, but just because you've lost a child in the past. And it might be that you know, they've made some shit up about you, which made you, or you're going through hard times that they've not supported you with, but you're now a target for them taking your child. So you can't even move on. You can't even demonstrate. Foster care was meant as a temporary place until they could be returned to the family, but there's not many get returned. Not nearly enough get returned.
Nope. They use the excuse that they're settled now and it'd be disruptive to move them and detrimental to their health.
I've had solicitors turning around to mothers and saying, oh, well, they're in the care system now, why don't you just leave them there? They've been in there 5 weeks and they're telling them to forget they've got 4 children. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous, because they know that they're not going to do anything for that family in court. They're just paying lip service to it and taking the cut. It's terrible. But yeah, the family courts is you'll hear some horror stories about that once you've opened this can of worms. Everyone's going to inundate you with the stories, I'm sure.
Yeah, the bad part about this, with this side of the cause, is I've been doing, my kids were taken nearly 5 years ago, and I've been doing my research on this massively, and I have to keep stopping when I get to a certain point, because it takes you down the rabbit hole of trafficking, of grooming, of even cannibalism to an extent, like with, you know, adrenochrome, blood, and all the rest of it. Hopefully I don't get banned for saying that, but, you know, it does take you down them rabbit holes, and you see all these, you know, these other YouTubers and everything going, well, where have these kids come from? And, you know, I'm sat in the background going, us, our families, the forced adoption lot. That's where our kids are getting taken. You know, a kid every 49 seconds is being targeted within social services, and that's every 49 seconds, as to recent studies.
Have you heard 49 seconds?
49 seconds to recent studies. The new record for how often kids are being taken is 49 seconds. In 2018 to 19, the record came out in 2019, but it was of 2018. It was one every 2 minutes. So it's now gone down a hell of a lot. But every 1st of October, the quota goes up compared to last year. So every year they've got more of a target that they have to reach for. So more kids that they have to remove. They're putting older kids in long-term foster care and in children's homes so that they can take the younger ones. The younger ones under the age of 4 are adoptable, and they're the ones that they're going to try and adopt out and place. And my daughter was pre-ordered. My daughter already had adopters lined up for her before she was even taken from me.
And I've heard people say, somebody said to me that their family member that's down on the list to adopt got a phone call saying, "Oh, we're going to have a baby for you soon." So you know, they can predict, they can order them, I guess, but a lot of these kids are getting abused in the care system. And that's being ignored. The parents haven't abused them, but they go. I know. I had her on the show actually. Her daughter was raped in care, and they only put her in care because it was some jumped up. Oh, that was it. She found out that her ex-partner, who was Russian, was taking her to a paedophile ring and abusing her. This girl was had poor sight, almost blind, and when the mother reported it, and because she was homeschooling her daughter because she wasn't getting on very well at the school, they then put her daughter in care. I think she's actually got her out now because she's turned 16, but she got abused in care, and that was after, you know, her dad had been taken her to a paedophile ring. Samantha Baldwin, her 2 boys were taken when she reported that they'd been drug raping her children, and that was the father, and he's still got the children. And there's story after story about it. You know, it's
Sarah Ann on our team as well. She's over in Northern Ireland. Her kids' dads are not pleasant people at all, and her son was actually kidnapped from her at the start of the first lockdown, where he was sexually abused by him, his wife, and her 2 kids. And I had the pictures sent to me so that we could blur out, you know, eyes, mouth, ears, stuff like that, you know, so identity could be saved. And there's one word that she used to describe the sight when she was changing his bum, which I'll never get out of my head. He's 8 years old, and she used the word gaping to describe when she changed his napper. And the courts and social services were doing everything in their power that they could to stop her from getting him back. When her daughter's dad took her daughter, you know, he went absolutely mental, the little lad, because he thought that what happened to him was about to happen to his little sister. And the stress that put on his mental health and her mental health, and, you know, it was brutal what they've been putting them through, even just the mental health side of things. But the courts will do what they can to try and keep them in certain situations. Oh, Lee's just put a comment up on the screen. We actually had a 15-year-old come to one of our demos that we did up here, because the social services around here forcibly adopted her out at the age of 8. She came to us when she was 15 in absolute bits, and she broke down to myself and Bobby Blair, and she had the letter D carved into her ankle. She explained to us that her adopters have been abusing her since they got her, and he'd carved the D into her ankle so that every time she ran away, she'd never be able to escape him. And she did we give her a load of equipment and everything, so she had everything there, so she could do, put a message out there if she wanted to, so that her story was out. Give her our passwords to all our social media and everything, so she could put it out there. She did a video, and everyone had sent it round and said, look, at midnight, every YouTuber post this video, share this video at midnight. So we did. So it blasted out everywhere. And she talked about every single bit of her abuse, what social services had been doing, about coming to take them back and everything. They raided my house 5 times in 3 days, roughly like that, the week that she disappeared, looking for her. I'd never had any contact with her before this. This was brand new. And I actually put stickers all around my estate. And because I do it when I'm going to the shop and when I'm going shopping and whatnot, there's literally stickers from my house all the way around, this town. As she followed those stickers, to my house to try and get some safety, another campaigner put her up the second time she ran away. And we've got a video up on our normal channel from when the police actually came and got her, and they took her straight back again. They just kept taking her back to her adopters.
Well, that was why, when I started doing Justice for the Women, that was about the rapes and everything. But so many people were coming towards us, coming forward at our demos, saying about forced adoption, that I did that speech in Redcar High Street in December 2 years ago about forced adoption. Because I'd spoken to Katie, and Katie opened my eyes about it. And even working in children's service, I hadn't a clue. I was thinking, well, we haven't got enough care facilities. Surely they're not encouraging to take them into care because we've not got the carers for them. So they must. I was obviously working with the families, supporting the families, but I did see a big decline in that support when they restructured the team, and there was workers sitting behind the desk. They gave them so much paperwork to do, updating their assessments all the time. So they had to show what they were doing with that family and updating. So they were looking at stuff, picking out stuff just to fill a report in, and then they were ignoring phone calls from the families because they hadn't caught up with the paperwork, because they didn't want to generate any more paperwork. So families aren't getting supported at all, really, from what I could see. Well, if it's got any worse than it was, then it's really bad. And
there's 2 sections as well, though, with social services, and this is what people need to realise. There are 2 sections to social services, and both those sections are kept as far away from each other as humanly possible. So when you go in to become a social worker, they'll judge you on your personality. If you've got a narcissistic type of personality where all your focus is just progressing, getting further in life, getting the best employment you can get, money, whatever, then you're going to go into the forced adoption side of things, where it's child removal, active child removal. If you're
they're even removing old people now. They're removing elderly people from their homes and hospitals and putting them in care homes. They've not stopped at the children. They're out of control.
This whole pandemic, it's helped social services with what they're doing. But yeah, the other side of social services, if you go in and you genuinely want to help the kids, they'll put you in the neglected kids section. So you'll be dealing with the kids who are genuinely neglected, who are abused, who are in dangerous circumstances, who are homeless, and they do not have the facilities to home them, to get them out of that situation, because those kids aren't adoptable. There's no profit in those kids whatsoever because they're damaged.
It's almost like if you look at the agenda that they've got and the patterns that they show, and it's almost like they want as many children to be abused as possible. Whether it's because they're easier to control, especially before the age of 6, because they kind of have a split personality. If you're abused before the age of 6, you're likely to have a split, and therefore you're easier to control and manipulate and brainwash. So I do think that's part of the agenda to, like you say, Katie-Jayne, they leave those kids in these families because they're already getting abused, and they're taking kids out that aren't getting abused under the pretense that they try to rescue these children from abuse that might never happen.
It makes it easier for them. Either way, it's a catch-22, because if you were raised in the system, so if you've been classed as local authority care, even my son, for example, my son's not local authority care now, but because he was local authority care, he's still a target when he becomes a father. So they could take his kids, they could take the kids of the person he's in a relationship with. My daughter, because she was adopted, she's local authority care and will be her whole life. She'd be lucky to keep her kids because she wasn't raised by her real parents. Therefore, she won't know how to parent because she doesn't have that biological impulse like her mother didn't have. as an example of the excuses that they'll use. If you're neglected, if you're an abused kid, they've got a way to you then as well, because you were abused. Therefore, you're going to go on to be an abuser. And, it doesn't matter. We're not going to risk you abusing them to find out if you are an abuser or not. We're just going to take them straight away and not risk it.
And we're not going to offer you any support or any help with those mental health problems that you might come across during your parenting experience. We're just going to damn you for it and take your child because it's worth a lot of money to us. It's,
As soon as you've had one kid taken, every other kid you go on to have, you'd be lucky to make it out of the hospital with it.
And also,
that's how cruel it is, no matter how many years later it is. People have had a name change. People have gone off to Ireland, to France to have their kids so that they don't get automatically removed. And it's
also, if I know of somebody that was friends with somebody, she'd had her children removed. They were with family members, but a neighbour of hers, a friend of hers, also had social services involvement. And she was told that she couldn't even hang around with her anymore because she'd risk losing her children too. Talking about her as if she's some demon woman that's going to harm her children and therefore risk
every person who went through as a reference, every person who went through as to become a carer, every single person on my side got told by social services that they would be targeted themselves and that they would start digging into their lives and digging into their parenting and their parents' lives and their grandparents' lives, brothers, everything.
I've been in meetings where the social workers they've put things in the wrong order. So things that might have happened a long time ago in the past, they put in as if it's happened like in the last week. And when I've questioned that, I said, the chronology of that is all wrong. That looks really bad to somebody, but they just think that social workers aren't going to lie, and they do. I accused a social worker of lying in an email because she told a lie about the same situation. She told 3 different lies to 3 different people. We were all talking to each other about it. So when it comes to dealing with families, because I also knew the family that she was working with, it's very dangerous, because when you're willing to lie to cover your own ass, I mean, she was waiting at home for a bed to be delivered for her daughter while the kid that she was supposed to be supporting was in court at 15 years old, But luckily, she knew somebody that were going to court, so she could get an update off them and act out like she'd been at the court herself. And so when I accused her of lying, her manager quickly got onto the manager of the school to give me a dressing down. Fortunately, she was one of the people that she'd lied to also, and she said, well, she does tell lies, and I'm a witness to it. But she kind of said, oh, well, maybe you could have worded it a little bit different. I said, but that's me. A spade's a spade. If you've lied, you've lied. I'm not dressing it up. But they protect each other.
I was accused by the judge of being the liar for pointing out that social services were lying. Because obviously I'd been under mental health services for a while because I have my PTSD, and it was just a comfort to me, having that support there, and I didn't have to burden my friends and family with it. And one of the days when I was in court, I was wearing a white t-shirt and it came to about there on my arms. So it covered my elbow, but covered like that. And I sat with my arms on the table and my hands crossed because I'm a massive fidget. So if I didn't have my arms crossed and in front of me, I would have fidgeted massively. And my son's dad was to my left and the judge was here on my right. I ended up walking out of the court because the social worker started bringing up my late fiance, who died obviously before I'd even had my first kid. My son was 3 years old by this point. No, you don't drag up a dead person's name who wasn't even alive when, the person in name was alive. So I got up and I walked out. Later on that night, I had a phone call from social services saying that either police were going to be on their way round to mine, or I had to go down to the police station because I had to prove that I hadn't sliced my arms. Apparently, when I was sat in court, they saw big gash marks straight down my arm. So I had to go to the police station and strip off just to prove to them that I've not done anything. I've not touched myself. There's no mark on me whatsoever. But they tried absolutely everything, just anything to discredit me. I had no criminal record. I had no issues with drugs or drink or anything like that. They had hearsay with me. With me, it was risk of future emotional harm, risk of future neglect, and risk of future physical abuse. And the physical abuse was down to the fact that I was abused by my son's dad, who they gave my son to.
It's crazy. Common sense no longer comes into it at all.
Victims are targeted massively. Like the amount of people I've come across who have had their eldest kids given to their abusers and their younger kids just adopted. Victims are targeted. We're no longer survivors because the state are re-victimizing us over and over again. I don't see myself as a survivor. I really don't, because the state makes sure that I'll never feel that way.
No. You look like a survivor to me.
I'm just a gobshite of a mum, and I got to speak up for the kids.
You are. I don't think you are. That's right, you're wrong. Listen, guys, what can I do to help? If I can organise some sort of campaign. One thing that keeps screaming at me is quotas. Quotas to put children into care. That's the opposite of what we ought to be doing. And actually, it's the opposite of what the law is supposed to do as well. Yeah. It's not in the best interests of children to just take them away from their families. And that's what's supposed to guide the law in this. So if there's a quota to put children into care, it's contrary to the law as far as I'm concerned. I think
they use the police to take these children, though. They come round with the police.
The police don't care about the law either, Sharon.
Round here, police have their own department within the social services building, and you've got the police here. Across the road, you've got social services, and social services have their own police department in their building. Yeah, they don't even
they like I say, common sense doesn't come into it. So a lot of these parents are like rabbit in headlights, can't actually believe that this is happening.
And we follow what they tell us. We do what they tell us to do because we believe them when they say they bring it. They want the kids to come home to us, and that's what they want.
Yeah, but they I was going to say a bit there, but anyway, it'll come back to me.
Yeah, Lee's asking if I've got the video of the police dragging the little boy out of the house. We do have. I can put it up if you want. Videos. I was going to say, but I can put it up if you want, but it's one of them where we've been banned already for sharing a video. If you want, though, we've got a folder. A couple of our admin, they actually got lucky. Social services went after them, and they brushed up on their law. They knew exactly what they were doing and what they needed to do. Father was kept away from the baby for the first, I think, 3 to 6 months. Kept away from the hospital for the birth and everything, but they managed to keep their kids. And they've been putting videos together, like clips together to make a video of showing what social services are doing, where they're getting police to forcibly drag children out of the house, force them in the back of cars. Social services, the way they manipulate and everything. I can email them if you want.
Yeah, please.
So I speak really fast. I'm really sorry.
What are you two doing on the 24th of February? Do you think you'll be able to come on and do a stream with me?
I'd be happy to.
There's something else I want to do. I want to write to the minister, the relevant minister for this. And I want to try and embarrass as many journalists as we can. I think, all these high-profile journalists, because what you need is a nationwide acknowledgement of this. Try and embarrass as many high-profile journalists as you can, because you can do it on Twitter, you can do it on Facebook, we can do it again and again and again, and ask them why they're not responding. Why is no journalist looking at this? Why has no one sat down with any of these parents? A high-profile national paper sat down with any parent and written about this and investigated this.
The most I've ever got was a call 3 months later to make sure I was still alive and okay, even though they couldn't talk to me.
The gagging orders that they put on these families as well. I was going to speak to a mum who, one child was out of school because they didn't find a place for him. The other child was out of school because she kept him off for anxiety. They were taking her to court for the child that was out of school for non-attendance, even though her other child couldn't get to school because they didn't give him a place. And because she put something on Facebook about going to court, they obviously looked at that Facebook on the morning of the court, and in court she got a gagging order put on her. So she couldn't talk about it. And this is what they do. They put the gagging orders on. Parents are getting locked up in mental institutions. They get, look at
before I forget,
he gets arrested. There's lots of these parents get arrested.
Oh, now he's been arrested again. He's been put in prison again, and the police aren't giving us any information. He's a dad of forced adoption. We did a protest July, not last year, year before, and he didn't mention any names. He didn't mention any courts. He didn't mention really anything. He just spoke about the situation of what's going on and people not listening. The next day, he was arrested and put in prison for a couple of months. He got arrested again just over 3 weeks ago, and the police are refusing to give us any information whatsoever. All he's done is videos on parental alienation and forced adoption. The thing, before I forget, it's no longer, you don't need a referral now. So you don't have to be referred to social services for social services to come to your door. Where it used to be a case where they'd only come if someone had rung with a concern.
Right.
They don't have to do that. Round here, they sit in the cafe and they watch the families coming in and out, and they get to know them that way. I caught the two of mine, the social worker for my daughter and the team manager who was the social worker who took my son, sat in the Costa Coffee at the precincts up here watching with kids. I had to cut contact with my friend because she had a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girl, and we were in the cafe together. So I had to cut all contact with them just because of what they were doing. And they'd sit there for ages just watching. The managers and a social worker shouldn't be having casual daytime coffees with each other.
That's spying.
Hmm?
That's
all they are, is corporate spies, and the consent forms that they started using aren't legit either, because you're supposed to get the consent from everybody that you involve on that. They group the families together. So if you put the child in, any connections to that child, they put it all on one day, like all on that child's file. Now, it used to be that you would only gather data on the child and what was necessary when you got the mother's consent for that. Now they gather data on everybody in the household without getting them all to sign a consent. They get one signature and they use it they put everybody else. They've not consented to their information being put on that, but they still do it anyway. I don't know any of them that would get everybody to sign it, but they would still write who's in the house. And I guess because that person that they're talking to has given that information, they feel that that's all right to use it without getting the consent of that person. But it ties people in together, and it shows you. But also the Department of Work and Pensions gets to see that list, because they see who's working, who's not working, who's living in the household. You know, they spy on you that way as well. They all share this new database, this new system that they got in. It's as well. That's the point I was going to make. When I did that,
I'm just going to go try and find something while you're having a chat, because I've got a video that will show you what I mean by what they do outside. So I'll be back. Yeah. I'll be back shortly.
When I did that speech about forced adoption, and I was asking other people up and down the country to do it, I asked the police in Middlesbrough where the children's services was, because I knew there were 2 buildings, but I wasn't sure which one was still open. It took him, was it a month or 2 months to get back to me? And he said he just happened to be in a meeting in the town hall, and the social worker was there. So he said, look, where's children's services? You know, which building is it? And she said, oh, well, those buildings are mothballed. They're not open anymore. We still use them as the address, the correspondence address, because we haven't got a new home yet. All they do is the hot desk. So when I was trying to get, because the idea was that we would all stand outside a children's services in that town and read this speech this information about forced adoption that I'd put together. And quite a number of people come back to me and said, well, where's the children's services in my town? And they've all closed down. They've all moved. So they're hot desking. They can sit in youth teams or police teams or wherever, the library even. They can sit in the cars with this new phones and laptops that they got and work remotely. So these parents, the social workers on the doorstep constantly until they get the child, and then they will not answer the phone or emails or anything to the parent. They get nothing back. They just cut off from that point in a lot of cases. And they can't there's no like building that you can go to that team to find out, to speak to a social worker or a manager, because there's no building for them. They're just hot desking everywhere, which gives them the freedom to just take these children and then walk away scot-free without. This is why I've been trying to get a good enough case for a parent to take a social worker through the civil courts for lying and committing. But you need all the evidence. They need watertight evidence in order to take this social worker, that, you know, the lucky one, to court, get a conviction, and then that opens the floodgates for all these other parents that have got, you know, complaints against these people, because otherwise there's no repercussions for them. I don't know how they sleep at night. I really don't. And I hope that one day when they have children of their own, they have to suffer in some way, in the way that they've made these families suffer, because it's only fair. They have to feel what they've done. They have to, one day they'll have to reap that.
I found the clip. I've actually read the title for the first time. I've seen this clip a million times, and I've never actually read the title of it properly. I just read Salford Social Services because that's the social services that went after my kid. But the title actually reads: Social Services collude with police to snatch children from a fracking protest. So I'm just going to get it up. I didn't have it prepared because, you know, it's just me. It's a couple of minutes, but it just shows you what they're like, yo, out and about. Oh, didn't mean to do that.
Keep walking.
Don't need to know them. Don't need to know nothing.
What, sorry? It's just important.
Trust me, you won't get done for harassment. You won't get done for harassment.
We need to know who the children are, basically.
You don't need to know who my children are. You won't get done for harassment. What charges?
And nobody's charging me.
Who are you? Who are you?
Are you linked to this
Who
lady?
are you?
Are you linked to this lady?
I'm a legal observer. Who are you?
Right, well, I've just explained from a multi-agency unit, and we're here to find out who this lady is, who the children are.
She's expanded. She doesn't wish to talk to you.
Do what, sorry?
I'm all over the place.
I don't understand what you mean, you're all over.
Ask the police who I am, they know who I am. Okay. Right? You've been against harassment.
Are these your
I am not.
Are they your daughters?
She doesn't wish to answer your question.
Well, unfortunately, we have to get to the bottom of it because we've got safeguarding measures that we need to look into.
No, you don't.
It's actually around the corner from where I live.
Is there a vehicle down here that she's going to, or? Is there a vehicle she's going to, or is she making her way somewhere, do you know? Just because if you've got a rapport with her, we just want to have a conversation with her about the children. Once we've done that, we can leave.
To ensure that they're safeguarded.
Children, come with me. Do not answer any of their questions.
Rob, don't worry, I am keeping popping in the other chat as well. Sorry, because we're on that many different streams, I have to keep watching loads of different chats, so I do apologise.
Round have we got?
For what? No, they can ask questions. Anyone can ask questions. You just get taken the piss. What are you doing?
I'm not allowed to harass me. Oh my god.
You understand what you're saying?
We now understand nothing that you're saying. You now think so? You're not allowed to speak to them. We're not allowed,
And the checks have been made. We can
phone up Mike. Phone up Mike at the head of the town hall.
But Mike who?
Mike.
There's probably more than one Mike, isn't there?
No, he isn't more than one Mike.
Calm down.
He's the head of social services in Manchester.
So he's the head.
Yes, he's the head at Manchester Town Hall. Phone him up and ask him about
call
this.
now.
Where are you from?
You'll get done for harassment. What's your name, please? Excuse me. Can I have your name?
Give me that officer's name in a minute. You come over here.
Can I have your name, please?
If you can't chat to us, we'll tell you.
That's the thing. I don't have to chat to you. That's the thing. I don't have to chat to you. Yes, I've done nothing wrong. What? And then you'll see the big mark next to the name not to harass me.
Okay, well, we've got books and things. No, that's sending me.
They quite often threaten
No.
the police.
Okay, I'll let you know what happens.
I interviewed a family whose children were removed on the basis of the older child had gone into school and complained that there was 2 younger children in the house, and the youngest one was about 8 months old, I think, and he was getting a bit. These are his own words. At the age of 16, he went home again. He was 12 at the time, and he must have been about 17 when I interviewed him, and he said that he'd gone into school, had an argument with his mum, wanted a bit of attention, so he complained to the school. He already had he was down as a special education, kind of needing extra support or whatever. So in his words, he said he wanted a bit more attention off his mum, so he complained at the school that he'd had a fight with his mum. The next day they had they didn't phone his mum like he thought they would and say, can you come in and talk, and then he'd get a bit more attention, let him know how he was feeling, whatever. They sent the social workers round. They threatened them if they didn't sign. They'd never had social services involvement ever before, so they didn't really know the process or anything. They couldn't really believe what was going on because they hadn't abused him. And so they said if you didn't sign the section, is it section 25, is it that one? They would get the police, and he was reckoning to phone the police to come and arrest him if he didn't sign this, what's supposed to be a voluntary sharing of care with the social workers. So they forced their hand with that and then removed the children. They've not seen them, the younger ones. Well, it must be 6 years now.
Yeah, they used it with me as well. They threatened me with it, with taking my son by force and not being allowed to see him ever again, or sign it and be able to see him the following week. But yeah, thank you, Anne, for coming on. You've been an absolute legend, and I know it's getting late.
Listen, I'll tell you what. I just sent you a little message, as you know, about something I'm going to try to do. I'm not going to say it publicly, but I think if I keep my name off it, nobody wants to be associated with me, but I can help with it. And if I keep my name off it privately, I might know someone who can raise this in Parliament. But what we need to do is put together everything you're telling me tonight in a succinct report. Katie, I think, I mean, let me contact you privately, and we'll talk about it privately.
I've still got all my paperwork and everything easily accessible, actually, in my other room. Right. So, I mean, I've got everything to hand as well. If
we can get a report put together, one that someone can sit down, someone in power, or someone who can raise this in our houses of power in Westminster, if we can put together a report that they can sit down and easily see how shocking this is, there's something maybe we can do. I'm not going to make any promises, but I'm also optimistic that I might know someone or a couple of people who might be willing to raise this for you.
That would be amazing. We need all the help we can get, because the more people that know about it, the safer they can make their families. I mean,
absolutely. And if you can do that report, we can also send it to every high-profile journalist in this country in public. Make sure we do it in public so that everyone knows they've received this report and ignored it.
Definitely.
I won't say about you, I promise.
They've been covering it up since Jimmy Savile and all the rest of them procuring children from these care homes and things. You know, guys in the 50s and 60s saying how they would be taken from the care homes, even, you know, for the politicians, and to be used and abused at these parties and whatever. So, you know, it's really entrenched, and that's why it's such a taboo subject. We don't ever get the support on the demos for this subject that you get for other things, like you get the veterans and terrorism and things like that. But for this, people don't get involved. It's such a taboo subject. So it's been a long journey, hasn't it, trying to get it out?
Oh yeah. You would think with little kids, and you would think it would tug at people's heartstrings. I mean, why doesn't it? I don't. It's frightening, to be honest with you.
It's the same as it's like when we go through Facebook. The way I see it, it's like when we go through Facebook. You know, when you scroll through Facebook and you see those videos of animals being tortured or kids being hurt. not many people click on it. A lot of people scroll past because they can't bear to watch it. It's the same with this topic. A lot of people can't bear to hear and to understand that this is happening. Like, this is a daily topic that people are every single day fighting against. And even when the kids are gone, it's still a daily battle to survive. Something I struggle with daily is the will to carry on. Because my whole world is my kids. Without my kids, I'm just, a shell of what I was. And, it's a daily occurrence with a lot of people. And it's like the worst time of the year for anyone who's gone through this is always New Year's Day. Every New Year's Day since I first come into this cause, I get messages from quite a few different people saying how many parents have took their lives through Christmas and through New Year's because they didn't want to do another year of missing their birthdays, missing Easter, Christmas, school. And yeah, we've lost a lot of friends, a lot of people we consider family, because of this. It's yeah.
Oh God. Listen, I don't know what to say. I mean, keep going. What else can we do? But I just, you have my admiration. I honestly, and I'm not going to close this off now and go about my business and forget about it. I'll do everything I can.
You've already shown us that that's the sort of person you are. I mean, it was a couple of months ago we raised the topic of forced adoptions here, and here you are talking to us about it. It's not something that was ever been dropped. It's something that you took your time to actually research and look into. And the fact that you've sat down and spoke to us about it, I honestly can't thank you enough for that, because it means a lot to you.
Can we put what do you want to give us the contact that you want people to send their stories to if they want to contact you?
Put my own address, my For Britain address, the one you use yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I'll give you a shout. Probably tonight. Just let me sit down and gather my thoughts a little bit.
It's a lot. You might need a couple of days. Don't worry.
And then
I'm going to be out of
action with what exactly I hope I can do with this, but I can't say too much. But with my name not aside, I'll help with it. I'll even help with some funding. But you need to keep my name out of it, or it won't. Anyone, people we need to do it won't do it if my name is publicly associated with it. So
it just shows how serious you are about helping us. To be honest.
What's that?
That actually shows not just me but everyone watching this as well how serious you are about actually helping the cause. It's not not a publicity thing. It's something you genuinely actually want to help us about. If it was a publicity thing, it'd be we'll do it, we'll do this, and you're actually there going, actually no, I'll help you come up with solutions, we'll find ways around it. And I really appreciate that. I honestly really appreciate that.
I don't know, look, I don't know. Honestly, I'm shocked, and I can't imagine what you've been through. And I know it's not finding the strength to stand up like this. I really admire you.
I'm just trying to show my kids who I am. That's why I do it. The only way my kids are going to find out who their mum is through here. It's the only reason why I do what I do and I fight what I do and put myself on camera is just so they get the chance to meet their mum. I've got a blood condition, which means my life expectancy is 48. Chances are I'm not going to be alive when my kids come back to me. So I want to make sure that they know who I was from the start and have a way of getting to know me and not just hearing about me.
And we've had a lot of really good comments on the show as well tonight. So, we've not spoken much about anything else to do with For Britain and Anne-Marie. So if you want to come back on another time and talk about that. I will come back
on another time, but let's get something done about this, whatever we can.
Thank you. Really appreciate this, honestly.
Thank you. I'll see you on the 24th. Both of you are coming on my stream on the 24th.
Well,
but in the meantime, I'll be in touch with a couple of plans that I have, and I think we might be able to do.
I might be able to come on, Anne-Marie. I've got an operation on Friday, but if I'm fit enough, I will. But I'm sure Anne-Marie either she can.
Well, we can do it a later date if you want, just as long as we don't let too much time. We kind of keep a bit of momentum. I hope it's nothing serious, Sharon. I hope you'll be all right. And
yeah, I'm sure I'll be all right after Friday. But I mean, Anne-Marie. Katie-Jayne's more than capable, and I'm sure there might be somebody else that's also more directly involved with the if I'm not fit enough. But you know, I probably will be by then. I'm sure I will be by then, you know, so we'll see.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch with you literally tonight. Just give me a chance. Just give me half an hour to sit down and sort my head out a little bit and have something to eat. Come up with a bit of a concrete plan, and I'll email both of you later on tonight.
Don't worry if it takes a few days, because it is a lot to take in.
Oh, well, just at least I'll give you an initial, just so you know I haven't forgotten you. I'll send you an initial email tonight. All right. Listen, thanks very much, guys. Honestly, it's been hard to listen to, actually, but fair play. Thanks for your courage.
Thank you for speaking with us. We really appreciate it.
No worries. Good luck. I'll talk to you soon. All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us as well. Are you staying on, Sharon, or do you want me to wrap up?
You can wrap up. I'll bye, everybody. Peace, love, and light. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's show, because it was brilliant, I think. Really got to the bare roots of it. So, yeah.
Definitely. And everyone, the emergency channel should be in the description box. Wherever you're watching from, it should be in the description there. If you can, jump over to the emergency or the backup channel for Children Matter and just give it a sub. Give us a thumbs up and whatnot. You'll actually help us out massively, because for 2 weeks, we're off the normal channel. So anyway, take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye.
The reason I breathe